Oh my god, I'm live. And not just that. I'm not just live. I'm live from Vienna. I'm Vienna in Vienna. What am I doing in Vienna? Let me show you there. The thing is, my stuff is over here. Has like my camera, my laptop, because I just recorded a bunch of things here, and I don't want them to get stolen. But the reason I'm here, so maybe during this live stream, we will see a whole bunch of things being stolen just from the back. So please yell uh, if you see somebody there. But the reason I'm here is, so I'm in Vienna, for those of you just checking in. Hey, how's it going all, everybody? Um, uh, Over there are the buildings of the United Nations. It's the CND convenes there. It's the Committee on Narcotic Drugs. It's the department of the United Nations that basically creates drug policy in the world, and it has huge consequences because drugs are illegal at a United Nations level, and all countries basically that have signed it, and it's basically all countries have signed those drug treaties, have to adhere to them and make all drugs illegal. That's at least the interpretation. So it's a super important meeting that they have over there. So it happens again tomorrow. I was there on Friday, and it continues on Monday, and it's extremely boring. Like, you will not grasp the amount of boringness that you have to sit through in order to follow it. And that's one of the reasons why drug policy has remained the same. Because it it's so frustrating to watch. It's horrible. Like, it's where hope goes to die. It's soul crushingly boring. But I hope to make a nice video over there. That's the idea. I might write an article for Vice about the whole ordeal. I hope some news comes out of it. It's kind of hard. The thing what's going on is that countries are legalizing cannabis, of course. So a lot of countries are now sort of well, not adhering to these international treaties anymore, and that means that, are these treaties now worthless? I don't, not really. But what are they? They don't even know. So that's why I'm covering it. That's the thing. And I just want to say hi. I'm not gonna do this too long, but I'm gonna just hang out with you guys a little bit. And as you can see, we're sort of losing the light here. I think the sun just set, but my camera will hold out for a little bit. I just saw somebody asking, who was that? They don't do drugs at the meeting. I wish. No, I mean, the thing is, so downstairs, so then the whole day they're talking about, like, oh, and drugs are horrible and they kill all our children, and it's they are the scourge of the earth, and we need to eradicate them, and we need to solve the world drug problem. And then when they're done, they all go down to the bar, and then there's a bar inside the C&D that sells alcohol, and it's like, oh, the hypocrisy of it all. It just, it frustrates me so much, because you know, if you just look at the numbers, then yeah, alcohol is one of the most dangerous, harmful drugs we know. And then, so to have like a whole bunch of people talk about this topic the whole day, and then load themselves up. I'm looking for my tripod. It's just frustrating to me. And the Philippines, that has like a brutal drug war going on right now, has a stand of like a comprehensive multidisciplinary approach, yada yada yada, about drug policy. It's insane. It's really weird to see all that. So what are you guys saying? I've been doing really well, Flo Beast Army. Yeah, thanks, Kent. Thanks. I hope, like, there's other issues that you can cover, like the nuclear energy or whatever things that are important in this world. I and I'm not doing that, but I seriously feel that this is extremely undercovered. It's like I was looking around. Let me just set this up for a second. What's a good shot, people? What's a good shot? Something like this. This works. That's a nice little shot. Yeah, I'm a little dark now, so let's see if we can fix that. So, Um, uh, have I ever done of the test of the they've done to Italian deputies without their knowledge, and how their sweat test revealed there was 30% doing coke and all of these things. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there's so many people that use drugs in so many different ways, whether it's alcohol, or whether it's weed, or whether it's coke, and nobody talks about it. It's like a taboo to talk about it. So that's why. Yeah, if you do these tests, then of course there was once a company that I worked for. It's like student television 10 years ago. Some of my colleagues went with like these wipes, these cocaine wipes that could detect cocaine, to the national government, the parliament, to see who was using coke, and it was mostly left-wing liberal parties that were at the toilets. It tested positively for coke, but I don't blame people for using drugs. Everybody has their drug of choice, right? Some people need to work hard and want to work hard, and then they take a stimulant. Some people like to dream and want to see things from multiple perspectives, and then they love psychedelics. Some people really love unwinding with a joint, or it helps them with what they tell me it helps them with their ADHD. People like to party and let loose, and then they take alcohol, and it's like it's fine. It's like okay, every sort of drug carries its own risk, and as long as we mitigate those risks a little, then I'm not going to be the one to blame these people. I just think that it should be regulated in a more sensible way. That prohibition doesn't work, makes drug use way unsafer. It also doesn't help bringing really the use down. So. And it in general makes society just less safe instead of more safe. So that's like, then it's pretty clear to actually just do it. But the people over there in that building are not getting that message. So that's too bad. Yeah, it's a nice sunset. Yeah, it's cool. Can we have more streaks? More streaks of what? They've been feeding us drugs without our knowledge in Memorial, probably. Yeah. I don't get why chefs use coke. Is it really that stressful? I don't know. If it's late at night and you gotta keep going, like people have their circadian rhythm, then coke could really help you through the night, right? That's yeah. If we all stopped, there would be a revolution by lunchtime. Imagine if you would ban coffee and cigarettes. Like, imagine the outcry. Like, what would happen? I need my coffee. I really love coffee. I think it's one of the best things in the world. Yeah, if they would ban that it has been banned. There are a couple of examples in history where people did ban coffee. Yeah. Oh yeah, some psilocybin. Yeah, now I get it. It was a policeman who they checked for cocaine. You said, and it was these cops tested positively for cocaine. It's hard because for cops it's just like they just do whatever they're told. It's a political issue, and you have to fix it at a political level. I think what I've thought was extremely annoying, in general, what I think is extremely annoying if cops start playing politics, like if their chiefs start playing politics as a political entity. When I was a younger reporter, I would always go to the cops to tell me about drugs. I didn't know anything about drugs. I would call the cops because they would know drugs, because drugs were like a criminal issue. But it's wrong, It's like they can maybe talk about criminal networks or the things that they have done, but to talk to a cop as a drug expert is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense, and that very often happens. And in the Netherlands, actually a year ago, the chief of police really started this like big, almost political campaign, saying like, hey, as a drug user, you should be more aware of the harms that your drug use causes in the world. And it's bullshit, because it's not about the drugs themselves that do the harm, but it's prohibition that does the harm. Very often, the harms of prohibition are projected on the drugs themselves, and it's not fair. It's not fair at all. Hoi Jacob, hallo. Rick says, hi Thijs, I'm from Gouda and I heard some talk about the full legalization of weed in the near future. What do you think is the likelihood of this happening? Well, it depends on what country you're talking about. In certain countries, I have a light. I have a light that I'm gonna try out. In certain countries, they're pretty far. In Canada, see, that's cool. Let's do this. In certain countries, there are... Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Let me just fix this first and then I'll talk to you. I got a tripod somewhere. Okay, wait. Oh, shit. Where are you going? Certain countries are definitely legalizing cannabis. Canada has done so. And it's one of the few countries that has done it at a national level. The United States has different states at a federal level, so at sort of like Washington D.C. level, where the president is and where Congress is. It's illegal because all countries, because the UN says so, because they all agreed so, have made drugs illegal. But then what you see is that at lower levels, very often there's like weird things happening in order to really make them legal. In the Netherlands, we're gonna have an experiment. So what that means is, there we go. In the Netherlands, we're going to have an experiment with legal weed. That's just that's sort of like a political thing. They just call it an experiment because otherwise Christian parties wouldn't agree on doing it. Which will probably mean that 10 municipalities, cities or towns will have some sort of like legal system. The last word has definitely not been said about all this because it's so it's pretty controversial. It's a limited thing. They want to maybe keep it temporary. So to answer your question, what do I think is the likelihood of this happening? In certain countries it has already happened. I think in the Netherlands it's like this political battle that has to play itself out, and if the country keeps on electing right-wing parties, then yeah, it'll be a while. But I think that it's almost inevitable that weed will eventually be legalized. And here at the UN, so that's why for those of you just checking in, I'm here in Vienna at a commission hearing of this Commission on Narcotic Drugs. They have a meeting every year to talk about drug policy and how to rid the world of drugs. They've been doing that for 100 years and been unsuccessful. You see that the fact that so many countries are legalizing cannabis is really like a big issue here. But simply because a lot of these countries are not adhering to these treaties. They're just basically saying, well, yeah, it's super important, the United Nations, but not right now. We're just gonna ignore it. And they're talking about it like nothing is happening, and everybody knows it's happening, and it's super weird. I'm making a video about it, and then I'll show you guys. It's like a so weird thing. Jacob, yes, I'm in Donaupark. Yeah. Welk Schoffler says, I smoke weed to keep my existential terror at bay. That is a very good reason to smoke weed. I mean, existential terror is a very real thing. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. I am but a mote of dust in a gigantic universe, going around some sort of like fusion reactor that's just below the horizon over there, in a beautiful way. And you at home and I myself, we are completely insignificant. After we die, we disappear, and everything that we did will disappear. If you want to squash that existential terror with weed, I think you're on the sort of the right track. But on the other hand, I think your life is very much more enriched if you go out and have like connections with people. That's like the other way, I think, for me at least, to squash my existential terror. Brain Damage is saying that he's thinking about starting a channel about drug policies and safe use in Swedish. Sweden is very strict when it comes to drugs, so it's needed. Any tips for a newbie YouTuber? Yes. Very awesome that you want to do this in Sweden, because indeed in Sweden they have very strict drug policies. Even alcohol policy is super low. It's complaining about low battery. Oh, I got plenty. No, it's hooked up. In Sweden, I'll give you some tips about being an early YouTuber about drug policy in a second. But in Sweden, it's so strict. Like it's frowned upon, as I've heard, and all drug use is very stigmatized. And what you see in the numbers is that their general use of drugs is lower, But then the amount of incidents, health incidents, is way higher. So the amount of overdoses and deaths because of drugs is much higher than in the Netherlands. In absolute terms, and in when it comes to percentual difference, it's way and way higher. So very good that you're starting something in Swedish. It's very much needed. My tips are like try to draw people in through like as like a wide audience. So don't. Uh, don't try to take in a couple of perspectives in a way. Try to be low on the drug promotion and do it more like drug education. So it's very drug promotion is very people very quickly say that something is drug promotion when it's not. But maybe just keep it in account. So stay factual, share experiences. So share subjective experiences of like what certain drugs does to people, and then also include the risks and talk about that. I would say to not start with the risks right away. Just first, when you go into the story, like for example, what is MDMA? First, talk about maybe its history, then why people take it, and then how to use it safely. So people have a little bit more context than just the negative side of these things. It's like otherwise, it's like you also don't talk about soccer, for example, football. Just by talking about injuries. You know, you want to talk about goals, you want to talk about the culture, you want to talk about everything, and not just that very narrow, like, this is, if you don't do this, then you will die. It's very important to stay safe, but I think it all needs more context. And also, I got to say, be aware of the stigma. It's real. Yeah, it's there. You can definitely find your audience and talk to that audience, but think about what your message is and how you want how to best convey that in order to keep it up. Let's see, where were we? How's everybody doing? Where's everybody from? Some people are from around here because they know where I am. Why am I in Vienna? I'll show you over there. Let's see this. Let's first sharpen that up a little. What is the building? That's the building. That's the building. That building over there is where the United Nations Committee on Narcotic Drugs seats, and they are having their annual meeting. And what that means is that the head of the drug war, the sort of like the top level, drugs are illegal. All countries in the world have basically signed all these treaties, and then they discuss them every year. And every year they're trying to now finally this year. This will be the year that we finally rid the world of drugs. That's the summary of it all. And of course, they're completely unsuccessful, and it's super annoying how that's the same sort of thing over and over again. But it's completely underreported, and so I'm here to report on it. Yep. I'm just gonna answer you guys' questions. Ghost XP lives close, can come to me. I'm hanging out with a friend tonight. But if you're really close, then shoot me a message. If you know how to shoot me a message, then I can get in touch with you and see where we can go, because I might do something tonight, but I'm not sure. Have I tried CBD products in Austria? Very good question. Yes, I have. It's where is it? It's super shitty. It was just for the story that I bought it. It's so by the way, YouTube regulators, this is a legal product, super expensive, 17 euros for like really shitty CBD hash. That somebody threw some weed in there, so that's nice. That it actually works. Because so CBD, there's like a CBD craze all over Europe. Like you can get it anywhere basically now. It's completely normalized. I do think that it's fine if it does something for you, but there's a lot of medical claims that it gets that are completely wrong and that shouldn't be there. I think it's cool because it normalizes the discussion about cannabis if people are at least familiar with one product. So yes, I've tried it. Didn't notice anything. It was mostly somebody rolled it into rolling paper with tobacco. So it was mostly the tobacco that I felt, and I don't like it. So thanks, Otto. Great. Parsifal, go to Queerbeat in Vienna. They have a bunch of legal drugs. Plans like Salvia. Nice. Thank you. maybe tomorrow at the end of the day I'll go check it out. Let's see. Mental Fladrich, can you elaborate? You say that Sweden has draconian drug laws. Do you have an example of it maybe? Hello. Let's do this. Sorry guys, I hope I'm not making you sick at home. Fuck. This is not working. And I don't want to lose this beautiful shot I have. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Super nice. Okay, there we go. Back to a stable setting. Not to a stable setting! Okay. Can't you get legal heroin in Sweden? I think that's some other... You can get it in the Netherlands and in Switzerland. There's legal heroin. If you've been a long-term addict, then you can get government-funded, taxpayer-paid heroin. It's a really successful program, actually. You can't even have drugs in your system. That's horrible. Without getting fined. What outlets could I contact to write about psychedelic science? I've been studying psychedelics for 10 years and I have a psych degree. Oh, that's great. But then, do you also write scientific things about it? I mean, there's a lot of... It sort of depends on the story, right? If it's a really good journalistic story, then you should be able to write like all kinds of media. But if it's very specific, about a very specific type of thing, and it's not good for like a popular media, then for like mainstream, the mainstream media, then it's a little harder to do so. There are a lot of blogs like High Existence. High Existence could be a good one. They probably won't pay you because it sort of depends on what you write also. There are like you can easily get it in like a dance magazine or even like health magazines. Like ayahuasca has been written about in like women's magazines everywhere. So there's clearly a market for these things, you know. I find it very hard to like give you very specific names because there's so much out there, and it really depends on the story. Like, what would you want to write? If it has more like a medical angle to it, then yeah, you're more in a medical thing. So first think about the story that you want to write, then think about the audience that should be interested in this, and then try to find publications that cater to this audience. That's how you should do it. You get in the 70s test by the government. Oh yeah, thanks. Mental T Fladrich for all your comments about Sweden. The Blinde Wolf says in America you're not allowed to drink alcohol in public. Are you allowed to smoke weed in the public like you want? No, you are not. Especially in Colorado, it's an issue because for tourists, for example, they are allowed to go to a dispensary and buy weed. They just have no place to smoke it. So you can't smoke it outdoors, and they don't have a private residency like a hotel to smoke it. So usually it's a little under the radar kind of thing. Yeah. Mental T. Frederick said the free heroin trials went well, but ended when a 17-year-old girl died from heroin she had brought from one of the guys in the program. That's weird. When in the program that I saw in the Netherlands, where they gave out heroin, taxpayer-funded heroin, it's super regulated. So it was really hard to get into the facility, let alone that also take stuff out. It was just, I would find it really hard. But maybe somebody tried, and then yeah, politics got involved, and then that's all. Then it's all done. Wow, so many questions. I have to go through all of them. Yeah, I'm a few minutes behind. So Germany, Florida, hey Todd, New Jersey, USA, that's awesome. Idaho, all lovely, lovely places. Ottawa, Canada, great. We can make a blunt. Well, oh, tonight, yes, by all means. Yeah, so after this live stream, and I'm copying some files. I think that's done now. Yeah. So I'll be another 15 minutes. I'll be here, and then I'm gonna walk towards probably is that then the Donau? Is it just the Donau? It's just the Donau. I'm gonna walk towards the Donau and take the subway there. So and then go downtown. So that's the plan. So hit me up. Maybe meet around the Prater or something, or a place that you know. So just tell me where to go, and then you should be able to send me a message somewhere, right? The band Edible CBD. I don't know about Austrian law about edible CBD. Not sure. Do I think that legalizing CBD is one step away from legalizing weed, which is a good thing? I think it definitely helps. If there's like a broad array of things, it can be, on one hand, it can normalize the discussion. On the other hand, it can delay certain things. What you saw in the Netherlands is that if you just look at our coffee shop system, was great that we had it, but it also sort of numbed the discussion for a very long time. It was like, well, didn't we fix that? We fixed that, right? So then we don't have to worry about it anymore. I think Luxembourg and Holland are legalizing weed with THC eventually. I think maybe Italy, maybe Switzerland is doing some trials. I talked to some people here at the UN from Switzerland, and they were very political about it. But it seems like over the next years, some news will be coming out of Switzerland about trials with legal weed, and I think Europe is kind of more conservative than the United States in certain ways. Not so much conservative in sort of like the Christian social values sort of thing, but we are super slow here in Europe. And look at the United States all the time and North America for inspiration, I feel. So I feel that because it's legal over there now, things will happen. It definitely really upped the discussion here in Europe, I think. What are my thoughts on drug prohibition? Oh, dude, I made a whole channel about it. I think it's ridiculous. I think every drug carries its own risk, and the risks of the certain drugs should be the merits of how it's regulated. A total ban makes society only more unsafe. It should be. I think all drugs should be available in some sort of way. But it really depends on what drug we're talking about. Coffee is something completely different from LSD, is something completely different from heroin, and is something different from alcohol. So I think that alcohol, for example, shouldn't be advertised for like. It's ridiculous that alcohol can sponsor sports games, right? I think that's just really weird because it's way too unhealthy for that. It shouldn't be in supermarkets either. And then I think that psychedelics should be available quite easily, actually. That maybe there should be like a waiting period for it. That's a thing. I just taped a whole video about this, by the way, so I'm just redoing the whole video. So maybe there should be like a waiting period for psychedelics, so that you can get some time to like read about like what they do to you and how you should handle them, and what setting that you go to maybe a quiet place, stuff like that. And then if you do that, if you start legalizing drugs in that way, then you will see that drug use will eventually become safer. It's a very long discussion, and I love talking about it. Yeah, if you haven't done so, subscribe, and then you will see that video coming up. Yeah, Washington 2. Any updates on my book? Yeah, there is an update on my book, and it's not that great. It's that I applied for this one grant, and they didn't give me the grant, so that sucks. But the fact that I'm here sort of means that I'm working on the book. This is just one of the many trips that I'm making. So next stop is Portugal next month, late next month. I'm definitely going there, and it's just the funding. Like, so right now I'm funding this just by myself, but I'm writing an article probably for Vice. I just sort of see if there's a story to be made here, then I will break even on this trip. Portugal will probably pay for myself, and then I'm working on a new grant for the part of my book that's about ecstasy, to go to Southeast Asia to see where the ingredients for ecstasy come from. And I actually have high hopes. I talked to this girl who worked at the grant, and she gave me some really good tips. And I think, again, I got my fingers crossed again. I need this grant in order to go there. Otherwise, the thing is, it will all happen. Otherwise, I'll just fucking fund it myself. It's just a lot easier to do it, and there's so many more possibilities. The book will be so much better if financial concern is not constantly hanging over my head, so to speak. So I hope to be done. The ambition is to sort of like really be far with it around Christmas, and then if I'm gonna be really proud of myself if around this time of year next year it will come out. So that's sort of my planning right now, and I know how ambitious it is and how much work it is. So it's gonna be a while. So don't expect that book. Literally, don't expect it this year. So expect a lot of videos of me doing projects about making the book this year, if I don't break a leg, or I don't know, if something weird happens. But if my life goes normal the way it is, then I'm gonna be traveling quite a lot. I want to go to Colombia, and I don't really have like an action plan for Colombia yet. But that's not until September or October, something like that. So until then, I should be fine, and I should be doing these live streams from all over the world. So that's cool. Yeah. Oh, Alaska just passed outdoor smoking only state though. Okay, thank you for the info. Luxembourg is definitely legalizing. They didn't legalizing cannabis. They didn't release any details yet. Andre Bauer says, no, decriminalization is just a war on drugs with some extra steps. And that's absolutely true. I'm not a big fan of decriminalization either, because it just basically says that you don't enforce certain laws, or you basically say that maybe the end user, that you don't really go after the end user, but you do go after the producers of all these things. And I don't think that's a good idea either. It's when you look at Dutch coffee shops, then yeah, smoking weed in there is legal. Well, it's not legal, it's allowed. Selling weed in there is allowed, will not lead to prosecution, and that seems already really open, but it's not really. The production side and the distribution side are all completely illegal still, and heavily enforced also. So I don't believe in decriminalization. No, I believe in legalization without commercialization. That's the idea. I think there should be. It should be legally available somewhere. There should be a spot where you can get this, the substance that you want. On the other hand, there shouldn't be, it shouldn't be overtly commercialized. Like eventually, that will just get, yeah, it's just not good if you advertise too heavily. All those things, yeah. Other drugs you haven't tried and want to? Yes, methamphetamine I have never tried, and that's still on my list, simply because I feel that it's really clear to me that if I try a certain drug, then my stories get better. It's simple as that. If I don't know what I'm talking about, when you look at the drug, then the story is worse. Every time it's the same every time. I read about a certain drug, and I talk to people who've had it and all that stuff, and it never clicks until I do the drug myself. And even when, for example, I once did crack, and I was like, oh, do I really want to do that? You know, it's like it's such a dangerous drug, and you try it once and you're addicted, etc. And now I finally understand. So it's like I lose 4 people, by the way, after I said I used crack. They're instantly out of here. See, people, that's what happens. That's what happens. So that's I don't even like talking about it. That I tried it because it's so stigmatized, and meth is sort of the same thing. But I feel that if I write about it, I sort of almost have a moral obligation to have done it. It's always, sometimes it feels like as if writing about drugs is like writing about movies, and you're not allowed to actually watch the movie. You can talk about that movie forever, you can talk to all the actors, but if you haven't seen the movie, then how can you really know what you're talking about? So are there any drugs that I haven't tried and want to? So heroin, I like to have this one sort of like exception for heroin, just simply because I just like having that exception. For now, I also don't write about heroin that much, and I have tried a bunch of other stuff, opioids, around it, and I'm sort of like, well, I feel like I sort of know the gist of it. I had this discussion yesterday with a bunch of people. What was the other one? There's still 2CE that I might want to try. really give me some examples, because I tried most of the other ones. That's sort of the thing. Oh, Ghost XP, you can't go out. You have school tomorrow. Yeah. Then you gotta stay home. That's too bad. That's too bad. Stay in school, kids. Legal means it's taxable, says the Church of Yashi. That's true. It's right now. I like to look at it not as a cow you can milk, but as a measure. So right now there's a thing that they call it the prohibition tax. So the fact that it's so risky for these cartels to ship coke or all these stuff adds a lot of money to all these things. Like even cannabis is more expensive than it should be. Because of prohibition, it's really not that hard to grow. It could be a lot cheaper. But then what you see is that to discourage all the people from using these things, the taxes are way higher. And I sort of agree with that. So you can regulate how much people use a certain thing by making it really expensive. So best example is cigarettes, for example. They're like $12 in New York, and it helps. It helps. Andre Boris says, what do you mean, homie? Alcohol is the safest, it doesn't hurt anyone. That's not true. I mean, it's of course, it's like the drug itself doesn't do anything. It's like sort of like guns don't kill people, people kill people, but which I don't entirely believe in. But in the case of drugs, there's something to be said that, of course, a drug itself doesn't do anything. It's the person taking the drugs and the context in which it's taken that can be dangerous. But alcohol, no. If you just look at how unhealthy it is for your body, there's thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people who die from cancer through alcohol. It's really bad for you. It's as bad for you as smoking cigarettes, basically. So yeah, no. If you there's other drugs to take. Oh, thank you, Parsifal, for all the good tips about Vienna, about queer beats. Yeah. How often do I smoke weed? A couple of times a week. That's sort of my thing. It's always like, for me, it's like when I don't have any responsibilities to other people anymore. That's sort of my thing. So if I still have to do work or something like that, then I don't do it. Sometimes it's like a right, what is it? Right drunk, edit sober. Yeah, right drunk, edit sober thing. So it's like, sometimes I blurt out some stuff, and then the next morning I check it soberly. Oh, sorry, Andre, you were joking. Yeah, like I said, I'm sort of behind on this thread. Hey. Andre Barros says, are you coming to Portugal because the so-called so good decriminalization we have? Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to do the story that Portugal is not as progressive as you think, because I don't see that story anywhere. It's super weird. Like, it's pretty obvious to me, but then Johan Hari in his book Chasing the Scream goes to Portugal and be like, hallelujah, this is the solution. And I'm like, nah, it's basically the system that we have in the Netherlands, but then with a commission that you have to go to when you were caught with drug use. I don't think it's good. Yeah. Have I heard anything about legalization? Atlanta, Georgia, everybody here smokes. The only reason it's legalized because we're surrounded by the Bible Belt. Yeah, that's true. If you would ask Atlanta itself, then probably Georgia would already have legal weed. But it's just, you know, all the towns and the rural areas around Atlanta that are preventing legalization in Georgia. What could you do? What could you do? Because Republicans are really. I guess gerrymandering. Stop gerrymandering in Georgia. The thing is, I used to be a. I'm still. I went to school for American history and American politics. So, in a strange way, I know more about America than I do about Europe, and that's literally true. Even though I live in Europe and I'm from Europe, but it's just kind of a weird thing. It's actually living in the U.S., seeing drugs everywhere, and so out of control almost also is also what inspired me to when I went back home to Amsterdam to start covering the drug war, because I realized that the whole decriminalization thing wasn't as progressive as we thought it was. This is a nice shot, by the way. See, got the light there. It's too bad that my phone makes shit blurry all the time. It's just low light conditions. It's just what it does. It's like 10 minutes of lag. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I'm really trying. The majority of the US is actually behind Europe weed tolerance Europe in weed tolerance is behind Europe in weed tolerance, not ahead. Mitchell, as it really depends on where you go in the US. If I go to California, it's like way ahead, but then if you go to Kansas, it's like way behind. So it's like, yeah, really depends. Yesterday you were on methylene deoxymethamphetamine, which is MDMA. That's interesting. What are my thoughts on benzos? Good one. There's a couple of benzos that I haven't tried. So I can't. I think they're really chill. But it's actually of all the drug facts. So thanks for that. It's one that I have to look into most. I'll put a couple on my list. So no thoughts yet. Come back to me later. Not calculated. Oh, let's go jogging. Yeah, jogging is really good. Oh, I'm so far behind. 3 months ago, the chance a lot. Okay. Okay, so where is it's not? It sucks. What's my job? My job is the Blind Wolf. My job is I'm a reporter. I do a bunch of things, but I was educated as a reporter, as a journalist, TV journalism, and then started writing more. And then I tried to get out of journalism and get more into communications and help actually sustainable companies become bigger and tell their story better, especially sustainable energy, like electric cars and all that stuff. So past year I stopped my drug reporting except this channel. I sort of like put that all on hold so I could focus more on getting my company more developed, and that's going well. So I direct films. What have I done? I together with my good friend I make animations. I write scenarios. I did a VR project recently about sustainability, which is really cool. And then this year I'm still writing a book. So on the one hand, I'm a science journalist. I also host a podcast about it's called Space Cowboys, about astronomy. I'm a big fan of space exploration and anything that's happening out there or that can help us answer the question how the fuck we got here, because it's like super crazy, our world. Like this thing that's not natural. That thing was not supposed to be here. We built that in the past century. And it's just, it's very often it's mind-boggling to me, the society that we built one another. So I always try to be an army of one, sort of like, I know how to edit, I know how to film, I know how to report, I know how to write. I can do all those things, and that lands me different jobs in completely different ways. Yeah, so that's what I do. I don't have a story. A content creator. I think I'm a content creator, and I can do it in all sorts of ways. Thanks. Uh, 5-MeO DMT I have not done. I did do regular DMT and ayahuasca, so that one's on the list too for this year. Unje says, I think something I completely agree with. I think some years from now we will look at our times of war. We look at our times of the war on drugs like burning witches, with the feeling like, how could have we been so stupid back then? And I fully agree. I think that's definitely the case. I think it's very much like gay rights. It's the same as like sometimes talking about drugs feels like you're talking about gay rights in the 50s, you know, heavily stigmatized, and just people are not even open to hear your story. Like, keep it indoors, don't bother me with it, you know, you do what you do, and but there's like international laws against this. It's horrible, it's super horrible. So thanks, NJ, for that comment. Mitchell, yeah, true. It's a minority of the U.S. I think when it comes to population, there's now, especially if you take medical into account, it's like a majority. But yeah, definitely, it's a minority. But it's a. So you're definitely right about that. It's just that I think that it's you do see it changing, and I think more and more states will follow. Although I believe today or yesterday, it was held up in New Mexico. So New Mexico was almost legalizing and then was not. The USA tried to blow up the atmosphere. We're all trying to blow up the atmosphere through climate change. Have I ever had a bad trip? Good question. Because I think I have. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I used way too much at like a festival in upstate New York. way too much through one another. I forgot. I think I took like a hit of acid in the afternoon, and it didn't really work. And then I had some weed, and I had some other like bath salts as well. It's 10 years ago. It's been a while. That was not good. And the thing is just I took too many things. Wasn't with my friends anymore. I panicked, and it's like right nowadays I'm much more chill. Like if something happens to me, like even today we were smoking a blunt and there was way too much tobacco in it. I hate tobacco, it makes me sick. And then even just by sort of like meditating on like what is actually going on with me, what situation am I in, what can I do about this? Is there something that I can totally like? I'm sort of at ease in sort of almost any situation nowadays. So yeah, in this case it was just I was overheating. This is what I sort of realized, like, oh, it was a super nice day out today here in Vienna, like 21 Celsius, sunny, and I was just completely overheating, not drinking enough. Drank some water, sort of like rolled up my sleeves, and within a few minutes I was cool. Thoughts on 1-LSD? I think you mean 1-P-LSD. In my opinion, it's exactly the same, and it's great because it's legal, and I hope it stays that way because if we can wind down the war on drugs, if we can convince these people over there in that building that the war on drugs should be wound down, then 1-P-LSD can be a replacement for LSD because it basically does the same. Somebody said, yeah, Ivan said we should hang out when I'm back in Amsterdam. We should. You're always welcome to stop by my office. I'm on Herengracht, close to Dam Square. How long does it take to get test results back from drug testing service? Okay, so don't take your MDMA to the festival because that will. I mean, if you want to take it at the festival, eventually you have to take it there, but you have to go to one of the testing services. You drop it off on a Thursday night, and I believe you get the results the week after. Yeah, the Thursday after. So it takes a week. So hope that's plenty for you. There's a bunch of political debate on making that shorter, and I think it should be. It's not very consumer friendly this way. Be careful with some guys selling hash in Lisbon. It's like pressed oregano. Yeah. Again, where I am in I'm near the Alta Donau in Vienna. I'm in Vienna because of a UN convention about the drug war. What are some of the pros and cons of the darknet markets? I feel like a lot of people my age have access to drugs when they should not, and that is true. But I don't think that you will easily solve drugnet markets. I think that if even in a legal market, you can have a dark web market sort of like selling products that were sort of stolen from the legal market. Still, it would be if we would legalize drugs, then the dark web markets, sorry, would also be safer. I'm not against the dark web markets. Results have shown that they actually make the drug market safer already because there's no contact between people. So if something goes wrong, you can't have like physical violence having that. So I think that's actually I think dark markets are good. 15 to 17-year-olds should not have access to many things, but they can still steal their parents' car keys and get a car, and it's very unfortunate, and they shouldn't. But I believe that if the product is then at least pure, and there's maybe like a little manual on how to use it, then I mean, I can't be hypocritical about it because when I was young I also tried certain things like mushrooms, for example. What I think about young people and mushrooms, it's like, or psychedelics in general, it's like growing up is already sort of like mind-blowing enough that if you learn how to use psychedelics, they can be worth so much more. So just trying to sort of like get a grip on life itself before you're, say, like 18, 21 is already like a huge thing. That even doing like wild things like taking mushrooms or MDMA is like opening yourself up to certain risks that you might not need to take. But I don't want to be hypocritical because I did some things when I was young and I turned out fine. Although in all honesty, I didn't really like. First time I used MDMA when I was like 25 or 26. LSD, I was even older. Many of these things I was like almost over 30. My brother had a lot of trouble with weed, and that really meant that weed was an absolute taboo in our household. I tried it a bunch of times when I was like 12 or 13, and then I didn't smoke for like 10 years or something. Like, weed was not part of me growing up. I was super anti-drugs when I was like around my 20s. So But mushrooms were available legally in Holland, so I guess that's one of the reasons why I tried it. Save free Ross Ulbricht. He did nothing wrong. Absolutely, I think it's horrible that the guy got life in prison. I still want to do. I want to meet his family and I want to do a story. And it was part of the original budget for my book to actually do that as well. Don't have a budget for it right now, but I hope to one day do a documentary about Ross Ulbricht. Plug your website, sure, Eric. What is it? A portfolio with a few of your articles, sure. Ever tried MXE? No, I will throw it on a list, do some research, and see if I need to do it. Mitchell says it's still federally illegal. Yeah, I just bailed out jail actually in Galveston County. Mitchell, that sucks, man. It's fucking horrible, and it's for people like you as well that I do this channel. It's ridiculous that you got arrested for weed. It's horrible. Such like the guy says, we will one day look back at these times like a witch hunt, and I'm really sorry for you that you were one of the witches that had to be burned. It sucks, man. Is Amsterdam an affordable place to live compared to the US middle class? No, it is not, but it sort of compares to let's say American cities. Like certain American cities are through the roof, of course, like San Francisco or LA or New York. Amsterdam is like that. So you would have to go, let's say, I mean, the distances in the Netherlands are super small. So 30 minutes outside Amsterdam, and it's a lot more affordable. But heart of the city, I don't pay a lot of rent because I'm super lucky and I've lived at the same place. I kept my apartment while I lived in the States, and I still have that apartment, and it's super cheap. But rent, if you're like dirt cheap, cheapest is like 600 euros, say $700, and then it goes up to like expat apartments, so like $3,000 if you want to, then that's possible. Food is super cheap in Holland. That's great. I really think it's super cheap. Healthy food is. Driving a car is super expensive. Internet is super fast and affordable. It's crazy fast. It's like the fastest in the world almost. Like we're in Amsterdam, we're right next to one of like the big hubs so infrastructure is like a big thing. So we're right next to one of the biggest internet hubs there is. So yeah. Is the whole live stream only about LSD today? Have I only talked about LSD today? I don't know. Stop blanketing the US as being further along than Europe when it comes to weed tolerance. It's still federally illegal. Yeah, but it's still federally illegal in Europe as well. Please give me a country in Europe that has legalized weed. All we have in Europe is, what do we have? Amsterdam selling in a gray system where production is illegal and only selling is decriminalized and use is decriminalized. Besides that, there's nothing in Europe. And in the United States, even though federally it's illegal, you have these states where there is quite an extensive system where production is legal and consumption is legalized. And we don't have that in Europe. We simply don't. CBD maybe, but that's all. Is the dark web still safe? It's never 100% safe. Nothing is 100% safe. Yeah. US further along in the legalization wave because it's more legal here. Thank you. Just jumped in. Hey, welcome, Sansa. Legalized DMT? I think yes. Ayahuasca is sort of legal in the Netherlands. There's you can go to a smart shop and get the ingredients for it, and then you have to mix it yourself, and then you can do ayahuasca. Love the Hague. Oh, that's funny. And oh, sorry, Mitchell, you don't live in Georgia. You live in Texas. Okay, yeah, I get it now. Yeah, Texas is also very far behind. Oh, thanks, Eric. I'm really happy with this shot that I got going here. Like it's pretty epic. At a certain point, I need to go get some food though. Denmark, it's insane to me that I keep on scrolling and there's still questions. Please, you all need to stop using this term legalized. It must be decriminalized. Church of Yoshi, I disagree. I think it should be legalized and regulated. That would be my term for it. So legalized means that there is a form in which to get it. Regulated means that there's tight rules about how it is legalized. If you decriminalize something, then you basically just you make sure it's not. Maybe I had this discussion yesterday as well. By the way, there's different definitions. Maybe we shouldn't be bogged down by definitions too much. But we all agree, I think, that it shouldn't be criminal to use anything. And I think that the judicial process for that is legalization and then regulation. I think it all sort of is the same thing, but decriminalization, very often in this debate is used as a term where you're just not being prosecuted, but it's unregulated, but it's just not criminal anymore. So like the Portuguese system or weed in the Netherlands, you know, it's decriminalized. It's not a criminal act anymore. It's a hard. It's pretty deep down into drug policy definitions. Spain has not legalized weed. There's Barcelona, where again it's unenforced. If it's a club, if you have a club of weed smokers, then the cops don't bother it. However, you did definitely see that because it's still illegal, it's very much a gray area, and certain of these clubs have been raided because they were too open about it. I see people saying that Germany is free-spirited about weed. Not in my experience at all. Yeah, if you go to Berlin and you light up, then of course it's not that big of a deal. But it's not like you can buy it anywhere or yeah. Come to me and smoke some weed, says Alex Smoker. I don't know where you are, bro. Whether I stand politically outside my stance on the war on drugs. I am forever in doubt of everything. I find it very hard to really shout certain opinions, especially about things that I don't know much about. But I'm sort of like a libertarian at heart, because I feel that I should be able to do with my own body whatever I please, and that my freedom ends where I start invading other people's privacy. I feel where I stand is sort of like I'm very much against centralization of power. So I feel that the future of our society should be something in which we respect the individual as a valuable human being, yet on the other hand find as many ways to cooperate together, and then try to break power wherever it sort of starts clunking together. So I believe in the European Union, for example, as a force for good, because you need that thing. But if we feel that certain areas become too powerful, for example, like this is a drug example again, but the CND here dictating policy for the entire world out of consensus, I don't think that should be right. There should be, I really believe in pluralism and many different cultures being able to occupy this very small planet. And I think my biggest, I believe in sustainable energy, because I think it's ridiculous that we are burning old animals and plants. Basically, what the sun deposited, solar energy deposited that in millions of years, and then we're just blazing through it in 100 years. It's just inefficient and it's not right. Yeah. So what else do you want to hear from me? I am very long. I was not joining a union because I was anti-union, and now I had to join a union in order to get a press pass. And now I'm like, what did it? Why not? You know, I don't want to negotiate on my own behalf for everything. So I'm glad that there's people outside of myself who can make decisions for me sometimes, because I don't know about them. So I really, yeah, I'm really aware of my own ignorance, and I don't want to. I want to steer. So I usually vote for like the centrist party here. That's like very progressive socially. So they were for euthanasia rights, abortion rights, drug legalization, gay marriage, all that stuff. And then they were financially, they're more conservative and a more private industry wise. As of late, that has changed a little bit more. I think I voted a bit more for the Green Party recently. And I'm always super interested when there's like a new right-wing political party on the scene, because I always hope that they emphasize individuality without reverting to going towards nationalism. And every time I'm sort of like disappointed then that the right-wing parties that I get to vote for always throw identity politics into the mix. And I mean nationalism in this case, not identity politics like the left-wing side, but the right-wing version of it, which is like, we are Dutch people, we are from here, and make America great again. And I don't get that. It's a form of identity politics that I don't feel myself Dutch. I feel myself, I consider myself an inhabitant of a very small planet in a gigantic universe. So I don't find it reasonable to now plant a flag and say, like, I am Dutch. No, I have more in common with some of you who live somewhere else on the planet than I have with my own neighbors. So, yeah. So, I don't know how to categorize that. I'm a humanist, I believe in humans, and I think we should care for the planet. Canada and Uruguay, it's legal. Yeah, true. Clubhouse. You can legally grow it at home in Spain, unlike the Netherlands. Yeah, it's true. You cannot grow. A scientist, Sansa. Maybe, yeah, maybe. I'm a science journalist, so I believe in science and humanism. Hey, I might disagree with you. I have no problem with that. No, of course not. Everybody disagrees on certain things. I like certain movies that you hate, and the other way around. That's what makes the world beautiful. That we're also super different, and then we have to find common ground in order to get things done. That's my idea. Medical use is legal, as far as I know, says Yvonne. Yes, it's true. It's legal. It's just not that ubiquitous. It's like it's pretty hard. There's not that many patients. What am I doing after the stream? Want to meet up in the city afterwards? Saver Hopfgartner, shoot me a message and tell me where you are. I have another friend that I'm meeting here, and I have to go to this conference tomorrow morning, so I'm not going to be up super late. But if we sort of like cross paths, I have to go through. I'm going to the Donau and then to the Prater. What is it, Praterhof, whatever, subway station. So I'm going to be around that area, and then eventually to the, what's the name of that park, where the big two towers are, with the, it's super fun, the big old anti-aircraft towers. That's where I'm staying close by. So if you're able to shoot me a message, then I'll check them in a second, and maybe we can meet up. Hey, I'm finally at the bottom of all the, oh yeah, I know you guys are chatting, but I finally hit the bottom of the chat. There should be a balance and fuse the parties for better, not one side or the other. Yeah, that's true. I love in the Netherlands that we have such a wide angle, a broad spectrum of parties that I get to choose from. Unlike the US, where you basically have two parties and a couple of really small ones that never seem to get any power, and that should actually focus on local issues, not on national issues. But that's another discussion. But I like in the Netherlands that I get to vote for all these different things. Oh, it's super dark now. Favorite movies? I don't know. Lord of the Rings. Praterstern. Yeah, that's where I'm going. Have I seen the Colbert Report podcast? No. Yeah, environmentalism. I don't, Mitchell. I don't understand why that is like an issue. Why people are upset about environmentalism. I think if you just look at what the consequences of certain actions are, and what sort of suffering that might cause along the way, then it's like a very reasonable thing to say, like, hey, can we do that a different way? And what I'm usually very frustrated about is that it's like evolution has built this amazing world. It's insane and it's beautiful. And then if we do certain things to wreck it, then I find it a very reasonable thing to say, like, hey, let's not destroy things. Let's try to keep certain things in order. If we know that we are just, like, humans have killed so many different types of species through all kinds of ways, whether it was for food, whether it was certain bird species have gotten extinct because of too many cats, or climate change just really changing ecosystems so fast that life cannot evolve quick enough in order to keep up, then I think we should just work together to find cleaner solutions. And then yeah, I find it like reasonable, and I don't find it pushy either. I think if we see that our actions destroy certain things and we should stop doing that, then I don't think it's pushy to just, like, you know, not hit the gas as quickly. I'm really big on environmental issues, actually. Hey, thanks, Anna. And I'm also wrapping up, guys. You're very anti-globalist. Yeah, and am I anti-globalist? I think globalism is a fact of life, right? It's a fact that we are now so interconnected that and space travel has sort of shown us, like, has made us discover how fragile our own Earth is. You know, these pictures of the Earth in the blackness of space, that we are all in this sort of like spaceship Earth together. That's like, it's just a fact of life. It's like, you can't, there's no denying in it, and we can all sort of like go back into our shells and and say that we can solve all things locally, but certain things have to be discussed on a worldwide level. I don't think that drugs is one of them, but I think that certain things, at least we should talk about drugs at a worldwide level. I don't care about. I think that's fine to talk about it, but to have laws making them illegal, that's not good. Or so I really believe in something like the Paris Climate Accords. I think that's really great. Is that what kind of animal is that? Oh, it's a bunny. There's a bunny running around. But I don't. But I think where we do find common ground is that I don't feel like there should be one entity pulling strings over the whole world, right? That I think we agree on that. Like I said, I'm very much against centralization of power. I think it's super. Well, it's just incredibly important to make sure that power doesn't concentrate into certain positions, whether that's corporations, whether that's governments, or tech companies or whatnot. I think if you can break certain power, then you prevent certain people landing up at the top of that food chain, so to speak. So that's why I really believe in all sorts of technologies that decentralize. But there's a lot of harm in that can be done in that as well, because I thought that the internet would be a democratizing force as well. But then you can see that simple, like, wrong messages spread very easily. Certain tech companies have amassed gigantic amounts of power. So I think it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I am the first to say that I do not have the answers to all those questions. So, of course, I'm a Bitcoin supporter. Yeah, do think that it's not living up to many of its ideals yet. I have a lot of investments in Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that stuff, and and I think there's definitely a potential. But what if? So if the networks, just a short remark about crypto, and then I'm out. If the system itself is a distributed database, right? And you need technology to keep that database up, then the portals to this database, even though it's a public database, will have a certain amount of power. And the reason I had to think about it was because I had this Ledger wallet that I stored my Bitcoins and stuff like that in. And then the most recent version of that software wanted me to create an account. And now I'm not saying that it was necessary to create an account, but 20 years ago, you always had to, 10 years ago, you could download device drivers for, let's say, your graphics card without making an account. And nowadays, it's becoming harder and harder and harder not to have like an account with your name or email address to it, attached to it, in order to download something as stupid as device drivers. So I think that a regulation and just simply the technological challenges will start bringing back these centers of power, even on the blockchain. So I was kind of in doubt, like if it's ever going to live up to its true promise. I think that Bitcoin right now is just mostly it's really handy to buy stuff on the dark web. Can I say the negative aspects about making drugs legal? Yeah, okay. Are there no reasons to keep drugs illegal anyways? I think it's a very good question, but I think that eventually it comes down to a very sort of central question, which is because one of the benefits of making of not making drugs legal, so keeping them illegal, is that you stigmatize certain drugs. So I think that, for example, something like psychedelics are not being used by so many people because they are stigmatized, because people are afraid of them, have been made afraid of them. And in the case of certain types of drugs, I would say that there's benefits to them, and it's not for everyone. Like, you don't have to go snowboarding, but I love it, you know. But I would highly recommend snowboarding one day because I think it's really cool. And I feel the same about magic mushrooms, for example. I think they're great, so I can highly recommend them to anyone. But if you disagree with that, then you want to, then the benefit is to keep drugs illegal. Like I'm trying to. It's almost, to me, the question is sort of like, are there negative aspects about making drugs legal? Okay, let me call it that. I think I have an answer. I think one of the pitfalls is that commercialization takes over. So if you have the bullshit industry, which is what the advertisement industry usually is. It's telling stories that don't have to be grounded in reality. It's just about culture, and it's about how you feel and all that stuff. Then if you start having those types of stories about drugs, then I don't think that's great. So that's definitely one of the pitfalls. If you legalize drugs, it's also very easy to not legalize them in the right way. Or look at what happened to opioids in the medical market in the US, that also completely got out of hand. So there's certain, the disadvantages is that if you don't do it right, it can also really go wrong. That's I think what it is. But in essence, the question is sort of to me as like, are there any negative aspects about legalizing tomatoes? Yeah. I mean, it's not healthy for you, but people use them anyway, so it's better to regulate them in the right way. And making them illegal has not stopped that. So it's really like this moral decision, like, can I do with my body as I please? If the answer is yes, then drugs should be legal. If the answer is no, that somebody has the legal right to put me in a cage for doing that, then the answer is you should not legalize all drugs. That's sort of the core of the whole situation. Guys, I'm the only one left in this park, and I think I gotta go. Sachi Sasek, am I here? Somebody asked what I'm doing in Vienna. I'm here for a conference about the drug war. Why am I not more popular, Eric? I don't know. it's a funny question to answer. Why am I not more popular? I don't know. I do have, like, I don't do drugs on this channel, so I never have a viral hit of like, here's me on LSD. You know, I try to talk about very boring issues in a sort of like easy way. So I don't know. Even if you would sell heroin, the amount of users wouldn't skyrocket. I totally believe that. Mushrooms are legal. Not, they call them truffles nowadays. It's basically the same organism, different type, different form. As if the roots of a plant are illegal, but the plant itself isn't. It's kind of weird. But it's not like we have high amounts of people using taking magic mushrooms. Hi, Thomas from Chile. If all drugs were legalized, what do you think the process would be, say, for a cocaine addict to acquire legal coke from a doctor or institution? Oh yeah, I can talk about this for hours. Smoke weed all day. Did you go to the Hanf Museum? Which one? Here? Is there a Hanf Museum here? I did not. I made a hemp museum in Amsterdam that you go to. I will do some videos about that, actually. Hunter Mountain, New York. Good place to snowboard, yes. How do you send me a message? I think there's an option for that on YouTube, that if you go to my about page, you can send me a message. Lando Cartel, I will pick this, I will start. So I still have some stuff laying around that I need to pack up. Cocaine, how to legalize cocaine. I think we should first legalize coca leaf, and then eventually you can legalize cocaine, but then cut it with some substances that are not harmful, but still dilute it, so it's easier to dose in certain ways. And I think that long-term addicts, right now, that's something which you can start with. That, for example, crack. When it comes to crack, they should be able to get it through their doctor. Yeah, that's it. And I'm getting cold. Oh, I've been here all day, and I've been doing videos. So, guys, it was so fun hanging out with you guys, and it's so many comments. Really cool. Really cool to just do something like this randomly in a park instead of at my office. But now I need food, and I need to pack all that. And I want to thank you all for sticking with me. Mitchell, you're also still here. Thanks, man. So we have to look at the anti-environmentalist and expose what the issue is. Yeah, true. Thanks, Trisha Joshi. Hey. Ande Barros, are you in Portugal? Are you in Portugal? This lighting does not look good with me. I can tell ghost stories next time like this. The worst trip I ever had in my entire life. I'll tell you about it. Actually, when, when I was, that bad trip that somebody asked about, I was sort of I was walking along a path like this, and it looked like I was in like a Super Mario video game, and everything just became cartoonish, and it was super weird. It was so intense. Um, yeah, like that scene from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You remember that? If you've ever seen that movie, it's like this movie of a guy who lands up in a cartoon world. That's how I felt. Oh, it was intense. Anyway, with that, I will totally wrap up. Thanks, guys. See ya!